So the Ways and Means Committee room, it's 2:30 on May 20th. We are looking at S-123, an act relating to miscellaneous changes to laws related to motor vehicles. Damien Leonard, who has not been here in a little while, very happy to see you, is going to take us through the bill. Some sort of sweeping gestures of paragraphs, please.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. For the record, I'm Damien Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. So what you have in front of you is the miscellaneous DMV bill or miscellaneous motor vehicles bill. This is a strike all amendment by your colleagues next door in transportation. Importantly, there are not a lot of differences between the House and the Senate here. And most of the provisions that relate to your committee's jurisdiction haven't had changes made to them. So what I'm going to do is try to focus on the fee changes unless you want to touch on some of the other provisions. Okay. Great. So the first fee changes don't actually start until we're well into the bill. They begin with the operator's license fees, which are found in Section 5 of the bill. And what it is a fee waiver for an individual who is under 23 years of age, who is in the care and custody of the Department for Children and Families after attaining 14 years of age. That is a very technical way of saying someone who is exiting the foster care system. So currently, DCF pays DMV roughly $15,000 a year to pay for licenses, permits, and various fees for individuals who are exiting the foster care system as they're getting their driver's license or a non-driver ID. And so what this is doing is waiving those fees. So this is a $15,000 hit to the bottom line of DMV. It is $15,000 added to the bottom line of DCF, and it stops several state employees from having to process these transactions.
I understand that would be true for folks who are still in the custody. But for folks who were in the custody, who are between 18 and 23, are those just individuals who are?
So my understanding is that this covers folks who are exiting the care and custody, but still receiving benefits from DCF. And I'm not an expert on how the system works. The language was given to us by DCF and then refined based on further work with DCF, but it is DCF came up with the language and has made the refinements to it. So this is their language for these individuals.
My understanding is the Human Services Committee is going to spend some time on this tomorrow morning with you.
They are.
Yes.
I've asked them to bring in DMV and DCF because there are details here that I simply am going to get out of my depth on.
Thank you.
But yeah, so this was the $15,000 estimate is based on.
And Chris can talk us through the numbers.
Yeah, or Logan, actually.
Logan, but you're
Yeah.
not sitting there. Logan, you're not sitting in your special chair. So
That's Chris came in early and took it away. Yeah. So Section 6 is a waiver of the EV infrastructure fee for municipalities and the states. So as you may remember, and volunteer fire and rescue departments. So you may remember last year we enacted an infrastructure fee of $89 that's paid along with registration if you drive an EV because you don't pay fuel taxes. And so it's a substitute for the fuel tax while we work on implementing a mileage-based user fee for individuals who own an EV. So this is an exemption from that fee. It is in a section that contains various reduced fees for the state, municipalities, and volunteer fire and rescue organizations related to motor vehicles.
are they exempt from gasoline taxes?
They can get a refund for gasoline taxes. Yes. The next is clarifying a fee exemption for veterans. So current law provides that no fees are charged to veterans who were honorably discharged and have a disability that they incurred while in service that necessitates an adaptive vehicle. So this is one of those converted vans you've seen that will allow someone with a wheelchair.
Sorry, we spent a lot of time talking about dishonorable discharge recently in a different context.
Yes, so we'll get there. And we're gonna avoid the dishonorable discharge piece. But this is 3 individuals in the state of Vermont currently. We were asked to clarify that this includes the annual $2 emissions fee. And the EV infrastructure fee. Currently, none of the vehicles would qualify for an EV infrastructure fee. But to the extent that in the future there are EVs that are adaptive vehicles, they'll be able to get that fee waived as well if the EV infrastructure fee still exists. So right now, this is a $6 fiscal hit to the state that Logan can talk about. On the subject of discharge characterization, though.
We get to discharge characterization.
Right, so.
Before that, I think Representative Brennan.
Yeah.
What did you say about the 3 people in the whole state?
There are 3 veterans who qualify for this, so you have to be,
Discharged?
no, you have to be honorably discharged.
Okay.
And you have to have received an injury while in service that qualifies you for federal veterans assistance with the purchase of an adaptive vehicle.
And I thought CHIP was complicated.
Right, so this is a very narrow subset of folks who have a disability that means that they cannot drive a regular motor vehicle, so they need a motor vehicle that's been modified. Whether that is a lift system for a wheelchair or other modifications to the steering wheel, they get a subsidy from the federal government of a few $1,000s towards the cost of that vehicle. And what the state has done is waive their registration fees for those vehicles to help out with the expenses. And as part of registration, there is a $2 emissions fee that is charged, so we're waiving that. And then there's also the EV infrastructure fee. None of these vehicles that are currently subject to this are EVs. In the event that some of them in the future may be, we've added that in. Currently, there are 3 individuals.
Can we suppress data for fewer than 5 people?
I don't know the answer to that question. So, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you.
This Christopher Joint Fiscal, the only reason I have anything to say about this really obscure area is we have to cost this out as part of the tax expenditure report. And because there's a similar purpose and use tax exemption for this cohort. And we actually do get a number from DMV. So this is how many of those exemptions they offer for that category. So it doesn't tell you how much anybody paid anything, but it's how many of those.
Right. So thank you, Chris. So the other change here is our statute says honorably discharged. The federal Veterans Affairs law and regulations say a discharge under other than dishonorable conditions. That includes honorable discharges and general discharges under honorable conditions. It also includes other discharges that the Veterans Administration determines are not under dishonorable conditions. We have trued up with the federal law. We are not allowing individuals who were discharged, received a dishonorable discharge or a bad conduct discharge to get a discount here. This was a question I got a lot of in your counterparts in the Senate. But what we are doing is in the event that there is someone in Vermont who received a general discharge, not an honorable discharge, but qualifies for this VA benefit, they would also qualify for the waiver of their registration fee. So, but it's a de minimis impact to the state at this point.
I'm wondering, to be consistent, if we ought to throw this same language in our military retirement bill.
Or maybe we should take our military retirement bill language and line it up with this. I don't know.
So
Let's think about all of it.
I want to say that this is very specific to this program. So I don't want to weigh in on your military retirement bill. I know that is quite the question. This language is very specific to this program. And so
It aligns with the federal guidelines.
we just trued it up with the federal requirements for the program rather than trying to look at broader questions of federal benefits for military retirees.
Thank you. Yes.
Was this a bill? Where'd this idea come from?
This was the language truing up on the emissions fee came from the DMV as part of one of their cleanups that was proposed in this year's bill. The Senate Transportation Committee, in drafting the bill, I raised the question of the discharge language and they agreed to change it. And then the EV infrastructure fee was something that they raised in discussions with DMV and said, does that make sense here too? And since it's charged at the time of registration, feeling was that it did. And it is, like I said, it's a very small impact to the state.
Okay,
So,
great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
okay. Section 8 is the same set of fee waivers for individuals exiting the foster care system. So you're going to see this repeated throughout. It's just getting all of the various license and learner's permit and ID fees waived. Again, with learner's permits, we're doing the same fee waivers in section 9 in multiple places because there are motorcycle learner's permits, there are test fees, and there are other learner's permit fees. And
Present muscle.
yeah,
Why are we waiving them?
we are waiving them because DCF already pays these fees.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a question of whether DMV or DCF will have these fees on their bottom line. And then we're taking away the work of the state and our DMV and DCF processing this. So instead it's just
Sorry, not scrapping them all together.
no, we're not scrapping them all together. It's just for these individuals.
Got it. Very good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jamie, the processing isn't that much simpler. Then somebody has to process, oh, this is one that's free, so somebody has to approve that.
Right, there's no use of the state credit cards and other accounting that's
Okay.
going on here is my understanding, so it is somewhat simpler.
Right.
I don't know, I can't give you a dollar amount for what this is gonna save. I know DMV is gonna have to do additional work on their end.
Okay.
But in the discussions that occurred, they decided that this was one, the state is already eating these costs. It's just a question of which department.
Got it.
And
Totally
so
got
it's
it.
just trying to simplify the processing.
Processing might not simplify that much processing.
The only other thing in here that's worth noting is that this will also permit a replacement learner's permit for a motorcycle to be able to be generated from an electronic account for no charge. So, oh, I'm sorry, popping up that window. So this is your MyDMV online account. If you've lost the paper printout, which is your motorcycle learner's permit, you can print out a new copy at no charge.
It's very generous.
Yes. So otherwise it's up.
Sorry, I just want to be clear, that was sarcasm. I'm very glad we're not charging to print something off. of the-
Otherwise it is a couple of dollars to print the replacement. Let's see, next fees here. I'm gonna skip down because the next is the scheduling fee. So there's a scheduling fee for your operator's license test, $29. It is currently not being imposed because the requirement for imposing it was related to being able to administer the fee electronically. And the department, because it wasn't charging it, came in with a proposal to just remove the fee altogether. The Senate Finance Committee brought a floor amendment that instead of removing the fee altogether, they would start charging it beginning on or before July 1 of next year, by which point the new DMV IT system will be up and running. So that's due to be up and running in mid-November, is my understanding. And this gives them time to work out the any hiccups in the system before they impose the scheduling fee. The other thing that they'll be able to do with the new system is limit you to one appointment. Currently, what's been happening is folks will block off 5 or 6 appointments, either so that they just get a time that works for them when they've scheduled multiple months out, or in case they fail the first 2 or 3 tries, they can retake. So this will force people to schedule one appointment at a time. And then the $29 fee does get rolled into the charges for the test itself if you show up. So,
Meaning that the test itself cost is reduced if you show up?
so the $29 scheduling fee is part of that cost. And it is, but you get, if you miss the test, you still get charged the $29 scheduling fee for not showing up. If you take the test, you get charged the full amount. Do I have that right, Commissioner? Okay. Essentially,
So if you miss it, you will get charged.
Can you
$49.
identify yourself?
Andrew Collier, Commissioner of DMV. Yeah, so if you make an appointment, you no show, or you just completely blow it off, we would charge you $29. The purpose of it though is, if you call and you have COVID, we will roll that 29 and keep it active in your town, your schedule. And the 29 will carry over to the test fee. Then the remaining difference of that will roll into your subsequent identification card.
Yeah.
I think it's $6, that roll over $7. And that will roll into your whole entire transaction.
yeah, so that was the other addition in the Senate, was to provide a good cause for cancellation. So if you've gotten sick or have some other reason why you can't make it that is listed as good cause by the department, they can not charge you the fee and just apply it to your next test.
And when it says as determined by the commissioner, that's the commissioner's going to set rules for what good cause is. It's not the commissioner's going to review all of these.
Exactly. You've got it. So, okay, we'll skip down. So the next one that will affect fees, sections 15 and 16 allow for early renewal of a driver's license or non-driver ID. And so essentially, if you imagine, I think I've got 2 years left on my driver's license, really 1 year and like 8 months, something like that. So I could go in when this passes, I could go in July and renew my license early. What this will do is allow me to be charged a prorated fee for the new license. So say I knew I was going abroad for 3 years, and so I was going to miss my license renewal time. I could renew before I left. And what I would save on the license fee for the new license is however many full years I have left on my license. So in July, it'll be like 1 year, 7 months, 1 year, 6 months, something like that. So I have 1 whole year left. So the 4-year license cost would be reduced by 1 year. So I would lose roughly 6 months there. But that's what this is doing. It allows folks to renew their licenses early. But it is not a way you can make a financial gain on the system. So you would actually end up paying slightly more for your new license if you do this.
The expiration is still on your birthday, not
Still on your birthday. Yep, 4 years out. Yep.
I remember in a conversation with somebody in the transportation committee, there was a system question as to whether or not this is possible in the existing system. Is that a concern?
So we've had that discussion. I defer to the Commissioner of DMV to talk about how feasible this is with the current system.
As it stands, our current system, this would be a manual process for the DMV currently. We expect to go through the November rollout and some programming changes. We might see it January 1, that timeframe for the actual implementation, but for everything starting off right now, it's just gonna be a manual process on our end. We're gonna make the customer experience pleasurable as we can and I'll let them know that it's a little bit more manual process and we're gonna just handle the back end on a kind of one-off basis for now.
I hear you saying it's okay though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. All right, motor vehicle taxes. You guys like taxes, right? I mean, don't necessarily like them, but you like working on
Keep
them.
on going.
Yeah.
And thanks.
Sorry, I'm trying. Just, you know, bored eyes. So, the first
It's not
thing.
you, it's not you.
Oh, okay. I won't take it personally. So we're working in the motor vehicle purchase and use tax. With a used vehicle, the department uses the clean trade-in value. Historically, they've used the NADA or NADA official used car guide, New England edition.
Is that what the blue book is called in statute?
No, that is the Kelly Blue Book. So the JD Power acquired NADA, and so they have rebranded that as JD Power Values. So that is the new guide. So we're updating that here to.
Just to keep things exciting, Damian, why do we use that instead of the Kelly Blue Book?
That is a wonderful question that I do not know the
Then
answer.
let's just keep on going because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter really. Okay, thank you.
So that is that change. The next is the commissioner's role in computing that. Again, we're updating to JD Power Values, and you're saying that the commissioner may develop a process to determine the value of vehicles that do not have a clean trade-in value in JD Power Values, because if your vehicle is older than a certain date, there is no clean trade-in value given. And so then the commissioner will have to determine that. My understanding is the department already has a process for that. And then just some cleanup in the language. For the refund provisions there, you have to submit, currently the statute provides no timeline for when you can request a refund. And so there are various reasons why you could get a refund. For example, you sold your prior car within 3 months afterwards, and so you can apply that value against the purchase value. And there are some other reasons in the statute. Currently, the key takeaway, though, is the statute says that you could request any time a refund on that purchase and use tax. We are putting a 1-year statutory limit on that. So
Representative Bigley.
Amy, could you go back to that last page? Yeah. When you're talking about the commissioner may develop a process? Oh, okay, that's
Yeah,
the
just-
process.
just the process for determining value for the vehicles that don't have a clean trade-in. Yep. And then there, as you'll see later on, there's also discussion of what if I purchased for a different value than the clean trade-in value? Can I get a separate appraisal? And we're going to get to that. That got a lot of discussion.
I guess go back to that one last time because it still has my concern with the word may. I mean, if there's no value for a vehicle, then shouldn't the commissioner develop a process? I mean, why?
I believe that the department already has a process. We were just putting in permissive language. Yeah. So.
When I start to talk, if you feel this isn't something I should bring up right now, just say, Carolyn, let's deal with it another day.
Okay.
But speaking of purchase and use tax, I
So-
noticed that the money unused on the bottom of our Ed Fund Outlook sheet at the end of the fiscal year pretty much matches the revenue we generate from purchase and use.
Wow.
So I was thinking,
Representative Brannigan, let's talk about that another day. Which I would not have said if you had not given me permission when you.
yeah, I know, but I
Yes.
want to show.
No, it's an interesting, okay, it's an interesting question. We don't want to give the transportation committee any more fodder to raid the ed funds, and some of them are sitting in the room. Okay. Damian,
Okay, the next section here, there's also a provision for refunds of your registration fee. If your vehicle is totally destroyed, that you can get a partial refund of the registration fee. Considering that we say totally destroyed by fire or through crash, the department this year proposed that we also provide that if you can't return the registration certificate or the number plates because they were destroyed in the fire, you could return other proof of cancellation of your registration to the satisfaction of the commission. Floods,
you just said.
has become wholly
Word and
unfit
so
for
on.
use. Yeah, wholly unfit for use would be, I think, would include a vehicle that is
Fantastic.
destroyed by a flood.
It was just an illustrative list.
Yeah. But again, you can now return other proof of cancellation that's satisfactory to the commissioner if you've lost the tags and registration certificate. So just clean up there. The fuel tax refunds, we talked about this briefly a little while earlier. For example, municipalities can seek fuel tax refund. Currently, it allows for 33 months to collect the refund. You're shortening that to 12 in the bill. So we'll skip over the next technical sections. Registration fees for trucks. This looks like a change. It is not. So this is no change in the fees, registration fees for trucks. What it is that we had this wonderful language in subdivision 2 of this subsection that provided that fractions of 1,000 pounds shall be computed at the next highest 1,000 pounds, excepting, however, fractions of hundredweight shall be disregarded. So what happened with that language is that the schedule was written as you see here, so that every 1,000 pounds, the schedule includes the next 100 pounds, or every 10,000 pounds, it includes the next 100 pounds within that fee. So right now, your fee here, for example, goes up to 80,099 pounds, but at 80,100, you switch to the next one. So instead of saying 80,000 to 90,000 pounds and then having that fractions of 100 weight language, we've just spelled out what it actually is in the statute. So now
Thank you for your service.
now the statute and the schedule match up. Imagine that. So we're trying to make things clear to the folks who read the statutes at this point. Back to the purchase and use tax, some technical cleanups here. We're defining motor vehicle. We're just cleaning up the language on that. It has the same definition as in the motor vehicle statutes. And for purposes of mail, we added a definition of that in the motor vehicle statutes last year. We're putting it into the purchase and use statutes this year. So just consistency. Collection of the purchase and use tax. This gets to the appraisal question here and appeals. Commissioner shall establish procedures for taxpayers to file an appeal regarding the liability for the tax due. The procedure shall include a process by which the taxpayer can resolve the dispute prior to issuance of a final administrative decision. In other words, a way to settle your dispute before you have to go all the way through the process. The department already has these procedures. We're adding the express language and statute so that the procedures can't disappear in the future. And this was requested by the department. And then shall create educational and outreach materials, providing information on the process and opportunities to resolve disputes. Again, this material is already out there. We're adding it to the statute. All right. And then we get to the final piece that I think this committee will be worried about today. The motor vehicle purchase and use tax and inspections report. So we are looking at the number of people who utilize the dealer appraisal process to determine the taxable cost of used motor vehicles. In other words, if you think the assessed value from the department was higher than it should be, you can go to a dealer and get it appraised. And then the age and type of vehicles for which that process was utilized, the difference between the clean trade-in value that the department uses and the appraised value, and then the number of appeals that were filed, and the number of appeals that resulted in a revision of taxable cost. And then finally, this section creates basically an internet hotline to submit complaints about the purchase and use tax appraisal process. And we're asking them to provide a summary of issues that were identified. So the short form is there were a lot of comments about issues with the way purchase and use tax is assessed and questions about its accuracy. And so this is starting to look at how often are the procedures that we have in place being used and how often are they resulting in a revision of the price? And is there a subset of vehicles where we're seeing a lot of this occurring? And perhaps we should take a closer look at that.
What counts as a dealer for that assessment purpose?
So the dealers here, I believe they have to have a certification with the department. The commissioner can talk to it a little better than I can.
Correct. So the term dealer we're using is one that is certified through the department. We have that list now online at DMV, so the public can scroll through and see that, you know, the closest dealer to them or one they're going to is actually certified by the department. So
Are most people who sell cars off parking lots of cars dealers? Or is it more when I think of a dealership?
no, so I believe the number is 12 or more vehicles a year.
Thank you. Okay, great.
Yes. And that is it. All those sections except the early renewal are effective on July 1. The early renewal of licenses is effective on passage.
Anyone have any further questions for Damian? Representative Feltus.
The early renewal of license, is that 4-year or is there a possibility of an 8-year? I knew that was.
We might have an amendment coming on 8 from another member, but it is not in front of us yet.
The current license renewals are 2 and 4 years. And if there is another amendment, then you'll get to discuss whether to have 8-year licenses on the floor. There was discussion in the committee. The committee opted not to do the 8-year piece for a variety of reasons, but the committee opted not to move forward on the 8-year proposal.
That way back on page 14,
Okay.
they say something about these 3-wheeled machines.
Yes.
Motorcycles. Is there a difference between those and a 3-wheel bike that runs on electric bike? They the same thing or not?
So let's see. I'm looking on 14 for the language. Actually, so either way, I think there are different definitions for we have what are called autocycles. We have motorcycles. We have motor-driven bicycles, and then we have electric bicycles, and they all have different definitions. So I think that's a short way of my saying that you may have seen e-bikes, electric bicycles that are three-wheeled. And you may have also seen motor-driven cycles, mopeds, that are three-wheeled. And you may have also seen autocycles that are three-wheeled, and then you may have seen things that qualify as motorcycles that are three-wheeled. And it has to do with, there's a variety of factors on each of them. So off the top of my head, I can't answer whether the thing that you've seen with three wheels is one or the other without seeing it. And it depends on output of power, how the power is delivered, et cetera.
So I don't want to give the commissioner a headache, but there is a group, old ladies in town that I know, who are riding around on these, they say they are electric bikes. But they look an awful lot like those ladies ought to have helmets and licenses to drive them, because they go fast, 30 miles an hour.
A little even Pasadena.
So
Are they pedaling?
Sorry, interrupting.
Should we worry about that?
well, I can't answer that question for you.
It's a term, it's a gang, old ladies on these bikes.
So that it's worth noting that with
Okay.
e-bikes,
For me, not for.
The there, with e-bikes, we've defined them as having an electric motor with less than 750 watts of power output. And they are limited to providing assistance at up to 28 miles an hour. That's a class 3 e-bike. And they have different requirements. There are electric bicycles out there that don't meet the statutory definition. I can't answer whether the bikes that you're describing do that or not. And that certainly the technology is evolving. But I can't answer whether it's something we should be worried about or should dig into more. And there are certainly bikes that don't meet these sort of standard class 1, 2, and 3 guidelines that are being sold to consumers out there, as well as batteries that don't meet UL standards or other certifying labs, et cetera. And I don't want to get off topic too much here because I think your chair will.
Okay, I believe, Representative, yeah.
It's something we can talk about if you want to put in a bill request. So
Right.
So electric scooters.
electric scooters are not covered that I know of in the statute. I could be wrong on that. I'm still fairly new to this portfolio, but I'm not familiar with that in here. I know there's discussion of the safety risks with those, and there has been legislation.
Yes.
There has been legislation introduced. I don't know that any of it's moved. So,
Last word.
The member from Georgia may be talking about something sometimes known as slingshots.
Maybe you two could talk about it later.
And we'll talk later, especially she lives closer to the northern border than I do, where they seem to be more prevalent.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, man.
These ladies
Appreciate
don't
it.
much exercise. So I think it is good for them, but I think if somebody gets.
Do you want one? You want to join the gang? Because that's what I'm getting from that, that you want to join the gang. And I do think you should wear a helmet if you do join the gang.
Baskets and bells.
Okay, team, we are going to have Logan now join us. He does not spend that much time in here, so I hope we can split together for a moment. Tuesday, right?
Not those.
Charlie?
Too rugged,
Okay, sorry.
pastel colors.
Okay, not these though. Still like 125.
A fiscal note, how lovely.
Yes, so for the record, Logan Newberry with the Joint Fiscal Office. I'll walk you through the fiscal note. Damien highlighted all the sections really that will be addressed here, so I won't go into them in too much detail and just point out the money. So there are 7 sections that have a fiscal impact. Spoiler for further on, most of these are de minimis impact, with the total fiscal impact to the transportation fund revenues of $44,000 in fiscal year 26. And then I have that caveat of an indeterminate, a smaller but indeterminate amount in FY 27 and beyond, and I'll touch on that briefly when we get to that section. So the first portion there, sections 5, 8, and 9, these are the exemptions for the children in the custody of the Department of Children and Families. These are your foster kids coming out. As Damian mentioned, and as DCF testified, they estimated less than $15,000 annually for these procurement of these items. So this would essentially transfer the cost from DCF 15,000 to a reduction in T fund revenues of 15,000, and then also reduce their staff time, which they mentioned was significant on their end. Section 6 is the EV infrastructure fee exemption. This is exempting the state and county municipalities, firefighters, volunteer firefighter organizations, or ambulance services from the infrastructure fee that was passed last year. This would reduce T fund revenues by approximately $29,000 this year. And then this reduction would likely grow in relation to the adoption rate of EVs in the state. But at the time, I can't predict what that adoption rate would be for these different organizations. So 29,000 in FY 26. Those two are the main sort of substance ones. That's how you get to your 44,000 total. The rest do have an impact, but they're very minor, really de minimis impacts. The veterans exemption for those special vehicles, they would receive an exemption to the emissions, the annual emissions fee, and the EV infrastructure fee. To my understanding is there are no electric vehicles that qualify for this, so it would really just be that emissions fee. And as we mentioned, there's about 3 of them in the state as of right now, so this is a de minimis impact. Section 9, in addition to the language about the DCF exemptions, there is the exemptions that would allow someone using their online account to generate the replacement learner's permit for the operation of a motorcycle at no charge. This section also has very little fiscal impact. There's not many of these each year, so this would also be de minimis. Section 12 had the license examination waiver. So this essentially just extends who the commissioner can grant this waiver to. So if you're out of state and you have a driver's license, you don't have to come to our state and also take the examination. The commissioner can waive that. This allows junior operators that hold one in a different state can also do this. This doesn't occur very often, so there would be an exemption from the examination fee, but it is also a de minimis impact. And then lastly is section 13. This is the $29 fee for scheduling a road test that was discussed. So as discussed, if you don't show up to your road test, the fee is forfeited. So while it's likely that because this fee is now in place, most people will hopefully show up for their tests and not schedule tests and then not show up to them, but there will likely be some people who will still schedule, not show up to their test, and then forfeit the $29 fee. So there will be some likely positive impact to the transportation fund, but you cannot predict what that revenue will be at this. And those are the main sections that impact the fees and have fiscal impact of this bill. As mentioned, approximately 44,000 this year.
Questions for Logan?
Just looking at our tax expenditure report. Do you know if in our tax expenditure report, which is a great read, is there a current exemption for municipalities currently for gasoline taxes? So I'm just thinking of that.
I don't believe, at least not within that report. I know there is the diesel exemptions you'll probably see in there. I don't believe the gasoline is reported, at least in there.
But they're able to get an a refund.
Yeah, I believe that we heard testimony on that. I guess I'm not totally sure, but I believe that is the case, but I can look into it. Yeah, and I'll double check on that. I know they get the
I
deeds.
heard Damien saying that, but if we don't
Right.
have it booked somewhere, that is confusing.
Right.
Okay, cool. Yes.
Can we hear from the recorder of the bill so we can say that he was here?
Yeah, in one moment. Anything else for Logan? Thank you very much.
Of course.
Would the member from transportation like to say anything?
Ma'am, I will just say our main.
Can you identify
For
yourself?
the record, Tim Corcoran, House Transportation Member, Bennington. Our main focus, has been all year, is not to disrupt the transportation flow of money. Meaning, you, guys, girls are probably well aware of the, fiscal outlook of our shortcomings over the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, our gap is 35 million up to 40 million in the next 3 or 4 years. So we wanted to be very cautious of these requests, that it wasn't gonna have a major ripple effect. And as you saw by the fiscal analysis there, $44,000 was well within our comfort level. There was an original ask from the Senate, and it had to do around the SSI and the SSDI to do more exemptions for the people in that program. And that had a price tag of, Dane, correct me if I'm wrong, we're around 340,000. And we took that out. We just thought that was a little bit too much to undertake in this bill. So the things that we went along with we're fine with, and that was our main focus as far as the numbers. Obviously, there's policy decisions in there too, but that's right on the main piece.
Thank you. Any further testimony anyone need on this?
Sure, I would move to find S123 favorable.
Well, Representative Kimball moves that we find S123 favorable. Any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk could please call the roll.
Representative Brannigan.
Yes.
I'll vote yes as Representative Burkhart. Representative Feltes.
Yes.
Representative Higley.
Yes,
Representative Holcomb.
Yes.
Representative Kimball.
Yes.
Representative Maslin.
Yep.
Representative Odie is not here today. Representative Wazazak likewise not here today. Representative Canfield.
Yes.
And Representative Kornheiser.
Yes,
We have voted bill favorable 9-0.
thank you.
Hey.
Thanks, everyone. We're done for the day, and we'll be back here tomorrow at 10.